do some final quick refactoring. This is going to start in the create book, where we are going to update the fields that we want to save for this book. So first of all, we're going to have the thumbnail, which is just going to be of type string. Then we're going to have a description for the book, which will also be of type string. And for now, let's keep it simple. This would be the fields that would be required to send through the API. And this interface gets updated because it's inferred from the schema. We validate the body based on that schema. And then if we navigate all the way into create book, so here currently we're still not doing much, but I'm gonna clean this up. This was more an idea than it needs to work that way. But basically we can go into the create books here, and now we need to update the book item with the description, and we can say book data dot description. We can now add the thumbnail, which would be book data dot thumbnail. Okay, so just like this, and it should still save. Now we're still returning the book setup up here, but what I want to do is I want to say rest await this db send, and for this command we want to toggle the return value to all new. So now it would return on this res, it would return res.attributes, which would be the newly created book. But we don't want the pk and the sk, we only want the id. So we're going to need to create some mapper that we can reuse everywhere in this repository. So I'm going to create a private function called map to external type, and we get an internal type, which would be of type any for now, and it should return a type of book. And this type of book currently only wants a title. We can add a description in here, which is of type string, and we can add a thumbnail of type string. So this is just a bit of Typescript typing, and there's definitely better ways to do this, but I'm just keeping it simple now. So we can say the internal type, we'll take the sk value and we'll remove the book hash string from that, and then we need a description, which we don't need to do any mapping for, and we have a thumbnail, which again we don't need to do any mapping for, and the title as well. So if there's specific mapping that needs to happen on a field, we can now do it in there. And now we can say this dot map to external type, and we have exactly what we need for that. To get a book by ID, we want to do the same thing. We're no longer going to return it this way. We're going to map to external type, and then we're just going to add the res.item. And then when we get books, this would be the same idea. We do the mapping right here, map to external type, and we pass in the item. Just like that. So this makes it a bit more clean. And when we delete, we don't return anything. And when we update, we now want to be able to not just only update the title, but the thumbnail, which would be the book data.thumbnail, as well as we want to update the description. Okay, so we can say book data.description, and now we would need to update this update expression. In this update expression, we will use commas, and then the next one we don't need to say set again, but we can say description will be equal to the property of description, and then a comma again, and then the thumbnail will be equal to the thumbnail property. Okay, so this is the update that we needed to do there, and we also want to return the new updated values, so all new values, which means we can get the response from this send event, and then do the same thing where we send map to external type, and we send in the res.attributes. Okay, so with this, if the attributes were to be undefined, because it is an update, it's possible that it is not found, we should return undefined if this property is actually also undefined. Okay, so with that done, I believe we've done most of the refactoring. The last part I want to refactor is by adding this book table name, which is used all the way in here. I want to replace it with an environment variable or constant variable at the top. So we can say const book table, and this will be equal to process.env.book table. So in order to get this process.env loaded, we need to add under the provider, we need to add an environment property, and here we can specify book table, which we named according to our resource, it is book table. Just like this. So now we should be able to get book table over here. I'm just going to cast it to a string for sure, and then we can deploy this again. So let's go ahead and do that. So SLS deploy. So now that that part is deployed, let's go ahead and test this out. So I set up some endpoints to just make these calls a bit easier. So let's do a get all books endpoint, and let's see what we get. There are no books. So when we want to create a book now, we don't need the publish field. We only need the title, the thumbnail, and the description. So here I have a thumbnail that's already uploaded. So I use the pre-signed URL. So we can try this again. We get a pre-signed URL as well as an image URL that is not saved yet, but as soon as we run this command and choose an icon, so let's go to documents, downloads, let's choose this icon and send, we see a status code of 200. Now we can copy this URL because that image is uploaded to that URL, and now we can add it as the thumbnails URL, and now we should be able to run this, and we get an internal server error. So what do we do here? We go check the logs, SLS logs for the function create book, and let's tail it to see what is happening. Okay, so it's streaming the logs now. Let's go ahead and run this again. Something went wrong. Let's see. So I'm going to keep these errors in as well so that we can see sometimes stuff doesn't go according to plan, and it's always easy to debug them. So validation expression, create book handler, validation expression returns can only be all old or none. Okay, so when you do a create, so if we go to the book repository and we do a create book here, we unfortunately cannot return the all new. So this can only be set to none or all old. But let's try the all old one. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it's actually going to return the information that we need. So we can play around with that, but for now what I'm going to do is, because this book item is the same one that we are adding to the database, I am going to instead provide this function with the book item. So we don't need this response anymore, we just need to await. And let's deploy this again. So I'm going to open a new terminal. I'm going to say SLS deploy, and I only want to deploy the function that we edited now to make it quick, which is the create book. So this deploy should be almost instantaneous. So there we can see it's done. Now if I go ahead and try this out again, I'm just going to clear the listen terminal. Let's go ahead and create this book. And we get back a status 200 with a success. So now if I were to get all books, we should get back one book. And we can try out the rest of the endpoints as well. So let's go ahead and try the get book by ID. So here we only have one book currently. So we can use that ID and just add that ID in here. I have a path parameter for book ID, and we send, and we get back the book, and it's formatted accordingly. And then we can take a look at the update book by ID. So again, we need to provide the same ID and what values we need to update. So we first need to provide all the values that are set on the book already, and then we can override whatever ones are changing. So I'm just going to paste that in here. So let's say we want to change the description to this is the updated description of the book, and the title we can just say book 1 and then updated. And if you wanted to upload a new thumbnail, you would do again generate a pretty sound URL, upload that file, and then take the image URL of the new thumbnail and place that in here. But we're not going to do that part because that's already tested. And let's update this quickly. And we can see this is the updated description of the book. And if we want to get this book by ID again, we actually do see all the fields were updated. So the last thing we need to test is the delete book by ID. So let's add this ID in here. I'm just going to go to my clipboard history, add in this ID and send. And this isn't a GET request, it should be a delete. Okay, and we try this out. And we see the message deleted. So now if we wanted to get all books, there's no more books anymore. Okay, so this is the first introduction basics to using Serverless Framework and AWS, and some of the basic services like AWS Lambda, API Gateway, DynamoDB, and S3. So I hope you found this video series useful, and if you did, remember to like and subscribe, and then I will see you in the next one.